I was raised with childhood trauma. I didn't know it, and my parents definitely had no idea. It's because of how I was raised and how most of us were raised, especially if you grew up in my generation. We were raised to be good boys and girls. And I was taught that anytime I do something that falls short of expected behavior, it attracts pain and rejection. In the simple form of punishment or spanking, and in my day, I think spanking is a really nice word for violence. In my day, it was brutal, it was violent. And every act of indiscipline or failing to meet expectation was rewarded with violence and rejection. And so I grew up in a value system that ingrained in me that I was only significant, I was only important as long as I met expectation. And it was nothing major, just as simple things as doing your chores, doing your homework, not losing half a pair of shoes when it's just about back to school. I was taught that good behavior attracts acceptance, it brings applause, it brings all the praise and all the good energies, and sometimes it actually brought material benefit. And sometimes you would be rewarded with a pleasurable event. Our folks would take us for swimming when they felt we were at our best behavior. And so this value system, this reward system for good and bad behavior persisted. Unbeknown to us, it was shaping, it was forming, it was ingraining in me trouble that was yet to explode in my later years. I intrinsically learned never to expect favor, never to expect grace, never to expect love and acceptance whenever my behavior did not meet expectation. I learned that for me to be meaningful, for me to have my place in society, I have to be upright. And so this value system carried me through my childhood, through my youth, and the narrative was consistent. And then here comes adulthood, and marriage is supposed to happen. Now, in this kind of value system, marriage is supposed to be like the grand finale. It's supposed to be the showstopper. It's supposed to be that moment of showing the world and the society that your folks did a good job. It's supposed to be that moment of reflecting to the world that your childhood, your youth wasn't wasted, that you checked all the right places in terms of behavior and being a fitting member of society. That is what I understood marriage to be. And so I got into marriage, and it was a beautiful love story. We had a beautiful wedding, blessed with 2 beautiful children, and it was all fine and dandy as we went along. And I kept the energy. I kept doing my best, trying to meet expectation and trying to remain the kind of boy I was brought up to be. And marriage added to that list expectations, especially because I grew up in a faith-based or religious system. Expectations like being a priest of the home. Never mind that other men take 15 years in a monastery for them to become priests. But at the switch of one vow, I was supposed to become a priest of the home. I was supposed to be the perfect father, the perfect husband, and the perfect example to the world around me. And I think I threw spanner into the works when I got into leadership in things like church, the estate. In my estate, I was called the chairman. And so even the chairman's children were supposed to behave chairmanly. And so I grew up and I sustained this kind of culture of meeting expectations, of working according to the carving of a good man according to society. I can say I did my honest best. Unfortunately, I don't have a trophy for that, but here I am to tell how that story went. The cookie started crumbling when my own experiences through marriage, experiences that brought success and failure into an interface of one man, those experiences started creating a conflict within me that I could not reconcile. And so I projected this conflict without me. And you know how that goes. That means you start getting into that phase of your relationship where there's drama, drama, and drama because of conflicts that were brewing within me. And what are these conflicts? Having grown up in a value system that expects me to perform, and very importantly, a value system that taught me that I did not deserve grace and love when my behavior did not meet expectation. Having grown up in that kind of setup and having nurtured it, in my relationship, it played out in terms of how I chose to interpret and perceive correction and criticism from my partner. I must mention that I married one of those beautiful women who are very generous with every opportunity to correct and to remind you to walk according to the straight and narrow. And I know she meant well. And probably everyone does when they remind you to keep on the straight and narrow. Before I lose you, let me enumerate what manner of failures or corrections. It was not one of those big crimes. I did not rob a bank. It was simple things like forgetting an appointment for the children, simple things like forgetting to pick a packet of milk on my way back, despite the list having been sent in the morning. Simple things like forgetting to lead family devotion, and the attempt to remind me to keep me to this path always triggered that sense of I am not worthy because I am not meeting expectation. And it became conflict upon conflict, unresolved. And before I knew it, there was a huge World War III waging within my soul. It was compounded by the fact that there was expectation outside me. I got into church leadership. I got into leadership in other places, and I was already owning a prominent space within my small society as someone who is expected to be upright, righteous, and ticking all the boxes whenever expected. This cookie crumbled when these conflicts became more than I could bear, and I started sinking into a dark place of anger, rejection, and even depression. I didn't even know I was going through depression until I spoke to a professional who diagnosed me and told me, "You are going into a bad place." I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision that was going to flip this narrative. At that moment, I realized that I needed freedom. I did not need freedom from anyone. I needed freedom from the mental circumstances that had been ingrained in me all along. I needed freedom from that anger. I needed freedom from that sense of unworthiness. I needed freedom from the pressure to measure up, the pressure to fit in, the pressure to satisfy Russia's expectation from whichever quadrant of the society. And freedom comes with a price. And I had to pay a price for it. One of the prices I had to pay is I had to completely dismantle and unplug myself from the value system. I came to a point where I say, I can do without all this, what I call a marking scheme for what it's supposed to mean to be a man or to qualify to be a good member of the society. I said, I want to exist without that value system. And so I discarded that value system, and the other price I had to pay is because there was already an intense buildup of a toxic environment in my relationship. I had to come face to face with the possibility of a divorce, and I said, I am willing to walk right through it. And so at that point, I lost my marriage. Because I realized that once I lose my value system, once I lose the ideas, the calculations that would make me a good man, it would be impossible to exist within marriage where this is supposed to be the showstopper, where I am supposed to shine the most in terms of the result of this value system. At the point of leaving my marriage, the process of separation allowed me to suffer a huge setback economically. I lost everything I owned at that point, and I was back to zero, literally, without a single coin in my bank account, without a single cent in my pocket. I walked out of that home, and I knew I had to pick up myself. I knew I had to start from scratch, literally. So I walked out of my home, moved out of town. I could not afford rent in this city anymore. And I went into a distant, lonely island in the coastal part of this country, in Kilifi. I remember the day I arrived at that island, there was no shelter. It was bush, still is bush. On my way to the island, a couple of friends had helped me raise some money. And one of my friends told me, make sure you buy a couple of iron sheets because you'll need to trap rainwater because the water there is salty, so I could not drink it or use it for cooking. But I was broken. I had nowhere else to look at and nothing else to hold on to. I knew I have lost everything, especially intrinsically my calculations or my tabulations of what life meant. I had to dismantle that, and I was willing to start from scratch. And so I arrived there. There was no house. There was a bush. And I met friendly people there who helped me clear a bit of the bush. And we put the iron sheets on top of a tree and set up a bed right under the tree. And I began life. I remember waking up with centipedes in my pajamas. I remember nights when I slept and I could hear the hissing of the puff adder right under the bed. But I reminded myself that I had lost everything that I could ever have lost or that ever had meaning and significance to me. I had lived with humans, and they were part of the pain and the complication I was going through. I said, it doesn't hurt to live with scorpions and snakes. Maybe the vipers were going to be kinder to me. And as I started my life in the island, I had time to reflect and to rebuild a new internal system within me. And during my lonely moments in that island, I also had to have conversations with myself about who am I? And why was I going through the conflicts I was going through? And I realized these conflicts, they may have been triggered externally, but these were internal conflicts that played out every time I met a situation that did not match what I feel about myself. And so I realized I had the power to diffuse these conflicts by changing how I feel and think about myself. I had to give up the victim mentality. I had to stop blaming my upbringing. I had to stop blaming my spouse. I had to stop blaming betrayal from friends and whoever else in the society, and I had to say, I am feeling the way I'm feeling about myself because I am allowing it to happen. I recognized that my mind had the power to imagine a bad script or a beautiful script. And so if someone told me, like it used to happen through my marriage, that you could do better, previously it would stir up anger in me. I used to ask myself, am I that bad? Am I that horrible? But that was an imagination I was creating with my mind, the imagination of how badly I am doing. I just took the opportunity at their criticism or their words to just make myself feel bad. I realized I had the power to change that narrative. It's a price I had to pay. I had to strip myself of all the victim mentality and the blame game. And I told myself, Mboya, you are enough. You are complete, and nothing can top that. Nothing can improve the fact that I am enough and I am complete. It cannot be improved upwards or downwards. I am me. What's love got to do with it? It's freedom. Freedom to be you and freedom to live life in your own terms without deflecting expectations or reflecting them on you. Freedom to live without key performance indicators according to external forces. What's love got to do with it? Learning to love myself and giving myself grace. No matter what experience I go through, I know I deserve grace, I deserve love, and I give it to myself before I expect it from anyone else. Thank you.